The mainstream media just had their worst day in decades after Tulsi Gabbard's bombshell press conference exposing Obama's treason. CNN panels erupted in chaos. MSNBC hosts stammered through segments. Even Fox News analysts were stunned by the scope of the conspiracy. Former House Oversight Chair Jason Chaffetz, he went nuclear on live TV, pointing at Obama's picture and declaring that guy was lying to us. Congressional Republicans are now openly using the word treason. Polls show that Americans overwhelmingly believe Obama committed high crimes. The Colorado GOP quoted Tulsi's evidence as irrefutable. The media, they can't spin this away. They can't memory hole declassified documents. The protective wall around Obama is crumbling by the hour. Now watch what happens next. So as the media is in full damage control mode after today's revelations, there is something they don't want you to know. Most guys think their testosterone tanks from aging or genetics, but the real culprit is something that you're eating daily, something marketed as healthy. This one food scientifically devastates testosterone levels, draining energy and crushing motivation. Just eating it a few times weekly wrecks your hormones, but there is good news. Men who cut this food are building muscle, they're burning fat, and they're feeling energized within weeks. Sculpt Nation's experts have exposed this testosterone killer in a must-see video. You can head to sculptnation.com/NNN. That's sculptnation.com/NNN. Link down below and discover what this one food is. That's right. One simple dietary change could transform everything. And don't miss it. All right. So let's get into what the reactions across the spectrum here. Andrew McCabe, yeah, he is on CNN. He calls it absurd for DNI Tulsi Gabbard to suggest Obama, Brennan, or Comey should face charges over the Russia hoax. He said she either knows it's absurd or she doesn't understand intelligence. Translation, the guy who signed the FISA warrants based on fake intel is mad the truth got declassified. Listen to this.
Talking about the intelligence community assessment, which was the piece that was essentially requested by the president after the election. And it came to three conclusions. The first was, yes, they absolutely tried to sow chaos and undermine Americans' confidence in the election. That's number one. Number two, they definitely wanted to hurt Hillary Clinton's chances of getting elected. And the third conclusion was they affirmatively wanted to help Donald Trump's chances of winning the election. Pretty much the first two, no one has argued about. The third one seems to be the one that still causes pain for Republicans on the Hill and the DNI. But nevertheless, it is an intelligence assessment. If you dig into the sourcing, you could decide you have a different opinion. That doesn't mean that the original opinion was invalid or treasonous. Just means that was the opinion of the community at that time. I concur with that opinion. In my view, they had good reason to base that on. Almost everyone who has reviewed our work has come to that same conclusion. The Senate Intelligence Committee report, which you noted, the Mueller investigation, it's been 2 years investigating it, came to the same conclusions, general conclusions. John Durham, who came back and investigated everything we do and brought no problems or complaints based upon that review. The House Intelligence Committee report, which has now been declassified, agrees in large part with what we determined, but of course differs on that count. So the idea that she would use this discussion around sourcing and intents of Russians as some sort of springboard for charges against Barack Obama or John Brennan or Jim Comey or anyone else is absurd. And she either knows it's absurd and she's doing it anyway, or the director of national intelligence actually doesn't understand the nuances of intelligence, which should concern a lot of Americans.
Yeah,
so
they're absolutely panicking right now.
Talking about
it is all over. Senator John Kennedy, he didn't hold back on Fox Business. He said that James Comey, Brennan, Clapper, nasty, mean people. They started the rumor Trump colluded with Russia, and the Mueller report proved they were all lying. Translation, the Russia hoax architects are now officially cornered.
Got a lot of sedition. So this is a criminal reference regarding Obama, directly pointing to Obama, according to DNI Tulsi Gabbard. What you've got here is, I think, a lot of treachery, a lot of betrayal. You've got a lot of sedition going on. You are an attorney, among other things. What do you make of this right off the top after hearing what Tulsi Gabbard had to say today and the rest of the evidence, Senator Kennedy? What do you make of it, sir?
Well, I've been on the Senate floor or in a committee all day, so I did not hear her statement. I haven't read her report. I haven't read her first report, Larry. It's still on my desk. I don't know what, if any, President Obama's involvement was in this situation. I do know this. James Comey, Brennan, Clapper, those are nasty, mean people. Russia did try to meddle in our election. Other countries did too. But Comey, Clapper, Brennan started this rumor that President Trump actually colluded with Russia to meddle in the election. And they, of course, they had the media on their side, and they were spreading it. It was spreading like wildfire. And then all of a sudden, oopsie friggin' daisy, the Mueller report came out, which proved they were all lying. That part I am certain of. But the new developments, I just got to look at them. You know, the Justice Department will get to the bottom of it.
Well, it just seems.
But the cast of characters we're dealing with, Comey, Clapper, Brennan, as I think I was saying yesterday, I don't know if you heard me or not, but Jesus loves them, I'm sure, but everybody else thinks they're an idiot.
Well, so
you got to love Kennedy. Here's John Bolton, man who never turned away from a war he didn't like, just called DNI Tulsi Gabbard a Fruit Loop on CNN for exposing Obama's role in the Russia hoax. Translation, she is directly over the target.
What happened with Russia? So one of the things we saw play out at the White House today, sir, was, of course, Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, go to the podium and all but accuse Barack Obama, former President Barack Obama, of treason over what happened with Russia. Can you give us a sense of how you're thinking about this? Do you think there's any credibility to what Gabbard was saying today?
The stunning revelation.
Well, just for full disclosure, I have never thought Tulsi Gabbard was competent to hold that job. To use a technical term, she's a Fruit Loop. And I think what is clearly motivating her here is not just to help distract from the Epstein matter, but to help save her job. And that was my very first reaction. And I say that not to indicate any particular insight, but to say it's a no-brainer. That's why she's doing it.
So one of the things we saw...
A no-brainer, a Fruit Loop. Yeah, whatever. Let's see here. This is the most significant political scandal in our history. Eric Metaxas.
Releasing. Hey there, folks. In case you're not clear, the magnitude of what just happened with Tulsi Gabbard releasing what's been released, the magnitude of Donald Trump, the president of the United States, from the Oval Office, underscoring precisely what this is. Not saying, let's see how it turns out, calling it treasonous, saying that the previous president, Obama, was responsible, was the ringleader, and in doing this committed treason. I want to reiterate that is true. And that is the grand horror of what we're discussing. It is unbelievable. Do not confuse this with any other issue, with Epstein, with all these other issues. This is the most significant political scandal in our history, in our 250-year history. It's the subversion of the will of the American people by a president of the United States. It is monstrous. And I'm coming on here just to say you need to understand the depth of this. This makes Watergate look like absolutely nothing. I'm not exaggerating. And I'm saying pray for the nation. Pray that justice be done. It will not be easy. We're in a war. Pray for the nation. God bless you.
Pray for the nation, man. This is serious stuff here. Continuing on with more reaction. Okay, let's take a look back in time for a moment. The Obama regime doesn't want you to remember this one. The time that Evelyn Farkas admitted on live TV they were indeed spying on the Trump team. The rush before Trump took office to kneecap him, all of D.C. They write, it's always in the eyes. Check this out. This is March 29th, 2017 flashback.
I had a fear that I knew about this attempt to get and preserve information. And full transparency, we're doing some work yourself. Tell us about that.
Well, I was urging my former colleagues and frankly speaking, the people on the Hill. It was more actually aimed at telling the Hill people, get as much information as you can, get as much intelligence as you can before President Obama leaves the administration, because I had a fear that somehow that information would disappear with the senior people who left. So it would be hidden away in the bureaucracy, that the Trump folks, if they found out how we knew what we knew about the Trump staff's dealing with Russians, that they would try to compromise those sources and methods, meaning we would no longer have access to that intelligence. So I became very worried because not enough was coming out into the open, and I knew that there was more. We have very good intelligence on Russia. So then I had talked to some of my former colleagues, and I knew that they were trying to also help get information to the Hill.
A lot going on today.
Yeah.
Yeah. They manufactured all that intelligence. It's all coming out now. And that was one of the individuals carrying water for the lies. Megyn Kelly's show 24 hours ago, the same night there were leaks from the administration, Matt Taibbi on why Obama White House meeting December 9th, is the Russiagate smoking gun.
Actors in the mainstream media. And I have to say, you've totally convinced me. You're as always, you're an honest broker, but you've totally convinced me. This is actually, I think they're in deep shit. And it's amazing. But my biggest takeaway is, how did Trump 1.0 not find these documents that Tulsi just revealed? Because they really show the story. But we're just going to walk the audience through it like third graders, because it's extremely dense. And it's taken me time and time again and reading all the materials to get it. So the deal was, let's start with let's go back to December of 2016. Barack Obama's president, but Trump has won and is going to be taking over as president in January. And they planned, the intel officials under Barack Obama planned, a lot of this is from Racket News, which everybody should read directly, Matt's group. Intel officials planned a December 9th, 2016 presidential daily brief, which is always from the intel community for the president, letting him know what's happening in the world. They planned a PDB that would say foreign adversaries, quoting here, foreign adversaries did not use cyber attacks on election infrastructure to alter the U.S. presidential election outcome. And they also plan to say, we have no evidence of cyber manipulation of election infrastructure intended to alter results. Here's the bottom line. What people need to know is Obama's intel community was about to give Obama a presidential daily brief that totally dismissed, downplayed, poo-pooed, choose your word, the notion that Russia had meaningfully interfered in the 2016 presidential election. That's true. And by the way, Matt has gone well beyond the language that just speaks to manipulation of election infrastructure and pointed out that if you look at what the intel community had been saying, it went well beyond dismissing they're not attacking our election infrastructure. They had doubts up and down the board about whether Russia had done anything more in 2016 than it had ever done, which was just kind of attempts to be a menace and sow a little bit of chaos. And the intel communications that are released now by Tulsi show that. So while Andy and others are zeroing in on the notion that before they sat with Obama, they were going to tell him no attempts to hack our election infrastructure. And Andy will later argue them later coming out and saying, but lots of attempts to interfere in the election in general and totally to help Donald Trump. He's saying that's apples to oranges. Jim Himes, you point out at Racket News, is saying that's apples to oranges. There's no gotcha in Tulsi's big reveals about what was about to happen next, because nothing that happened next contradicted that they didn't try to hack our election databases. Okay, so hopefully the audience is with me so far. What Tulsi revealed was that the intel community was about to issue that statement to President Obama saying they didn't. Like, they didn't try to hack our election infrastructure, and there's no evidence that they intended to alter the results this way. And what happened was James Comey's FBI said, we're out. We're not joining that. We don't agree with that, and we're going to issue our own briefing later. And as a result of the FBI saying that and saying it was going to draft a dissent, an official from Clapper's office, Clapper, again, at the time, he was national security, DNI. He was director of national intelligence. And by the way, Matt points out, Clapper of all the intel officials was probably the least enthusiastic about Russia. It was a lot more Brennan over at CIA. But anyway, Clapper's office, said we're axing the PDB because the DNI, like Tulsi now, she does the PDB for Trump. Whoever runs the intelligence apparatus does it. And that was Clapper under Obama. So he said, FBI's out. Okay, we're killing it. We're killing the PDB for the time being. And at that point, a meeting was held. It was called and held, including all of Obama's top people, all of them. And they had a big meeting on this. And the next day, things changed dramatically on the Russia narrative and changed in a way that would support the Russia allegations that would go on to undermine the entire first term of Donald J. Trump. And Matt is going to help us lay out this whole story. So, and Matt contends, and he's convinced me too, it was not a matter of changing it from apples to oranges, just like pointing out apples and pointing out oranges before and after this critical meeting. It was, they had been saying, there's no apples. And as a result of this meeting, they changed it to say, apples abound. We're in an orchard. They're everywhere. We see nothing but apples. So it's really not an apples to oranges situation. We're going to get into all of this. Okay, Matt, thank you for being patient through my thumbnail sketch. What's the first thing you want to say about this story?
Well, first of all, I understand, and I think you did a great job walking people through everything. I understand the confusion about this. I don't think that the report, as it was released, did a particularly good job of explaining what exactly the significance of these documents was, but they were very significant. If you remember before the election,
okay, I want to point out real quick here, because this was recorded before this morning's bombshell. So he's referring to a different set of documents. The documents that were released today lay it all out very clearly.
And there was a story in the New York Times, for instance, on October 31st, saying FBI sees no link, between Russia and Trump and the election. This was sort of what officials were telling people in the media. There were a few fringe attempts to kind of work the Steele dossier material, this full-on Trump-Russia conspiracy narrative, into the media. But for the most part, they didn't get there. After the election, it was the same thing until this moment on December 9th, 2016, when Barack Obama convened this meeting, ordered a new intelligence assessment, and then immediately that same night, there were leaks from the administration telling people that there had been interference by Russia specifically to help Donald Trump, because there were two different.
Let me stop you right there. So they call this meeting with all the Obama top people, and no revised PDB has been issued yet. No revised intelligence community assessment has happened yet. The last thing that happened in the intel community was, we're going to tell them that there really was no significant Russian interference, at least insofar as election apparatus goes. And FBI said, we're out. We're going to issue our own. And then Clapper said, all right, well, let's just pause everything. Then everybody gets together. Right after that, before any revised intel happened, before anything happened, they began leaking to the media. WAPO, New York Times, CNN, saying something diametrically opposed, saying, Russia interfered. And that, to you described that as the smoking gun that shows there had been a decision to shift the entire messaging around this in a way they thought would undermine Trump. Because why, if that were not the case, wouldn't they have just waited until they had the new and newly ordered intel assessment and then figured out what was what?
Yeah, and that's really the striking set of documents is you can see on December 9th, there is an order from the Director of National Intelligence Office basically giving out directions on how to put together a new intelligence community assessment per the president's request. But
so we're going to continue on. That's a rather long clip. I didn't intend to play the whole thing. There's still about 4 minutes left, but I still want to get. I want to get to Chaffetz here in his reaction. We got PBD coming up. We've got some of the remarks that were also made. We got Jesse Waters. Where is the Jason Chaffetz clip? Oh, here's CNN's Jeff Zielinski. This is hardly information we should be repeating and spending that much more time on. Wow. Yeah. CNN already downplaying it.
We have no idea. I mean, this is hardly information that we should even be repeating. Never mind that it's, some years after the fact, 8 years more than that after the fact, but also just to look at the source. But look, this is the what this White House wants to talk about. And I'm not sure that we should spend that much more time on it, frankly.
Yeah. I mean, listen, that
we have no idea.
We shouldn't spend that much more time on it. Are you kidding me? How many people's lives were affected, turned upside down? The entire republic was in turmoil. We need justice. Here's former House Oversight Chair Jason Chaffetz going off on former President Barack Obama.
He was part of, I cannot even express how stunning this is. The president of the United States was engaged in a conspiracy. That's the allegation. Mm-hmm. I'm so disappointed in Barack Obama. He puts himself up there as a scandal-free president. Now, look how great it was for 8 years. That guy on the screen, he was lying to us. And he was part of concocting a conspiracy to deceive the American people. It doesn't get any worse than that. And how many times did I get a lecture from the Democrats about nobody's above the law? Nobody's above the law. They all said it. They drove it home every time. And we'll see where they are now. They're going to run for the hills. And Jonathan Turley is right. He is absolutely right. Where is the intellectual curiosity? Where are they going to be in terms of returning their Pulitzer Prizes and all the awards that they won and patting themselves on the back on how great they were on getting Donald Trump? They were all lying to us, and they got snookered, and they should be held accountable. And I want to see some people in handcuffs. They have to be held accountable, or it'll happen again. I cannot
handcuffs for all of them. Okay, I want to see. Here's a question: do you agree with Tulsi Gabbard saying Obama did commit treason? Yes or no? Okay, so there's also some interesting things that occurred during the press conference. Check this out. Here's CNN cutting off Tulsi Gabbard as she's telling the world that Obama committed treason. Watch this.
Election. Multiple intelligence community assessments released in the months leading up to the November 2016 election concluded that Russia had neither the intent nor capability to impact the outcome of the U.S. election. On December 5th.
We've been listening there to the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, continuing on what has now been a multi-day effort, not only with public statements like this, but release of documents to...
CNN cutting her off. Wow. Here is Obama spokesperson responding to the bizarre Russia hoax allegations. This is on Fox.
Trump saying today. But first, breaking tonight, President Trump says then-President Obama was a ringleader in a plot to rig the 2016 election and calls it the biggest scandal in the history of the country. President Trump saying today the Justice Department should target Mr. Obama, who he says is, quote, guilty. Now the former president is pushing back, firing back against those claims through his office. Correspondent David Spunt starts us off tonight from here in Washington. Good evening, David.
Brett, good evening to you. President Trump often criticizes former President Barack Obama and members of his national security team. But just hours ago, the current White House occupant moved the story to the next level.
Whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people Obama's been caught directly.
President Donald Trump in the Oval Office, suggesting his predecessor, Barack Obama, should face criminal charges.
He's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you can think of. They tried to steal the election.
Trump's comments come after the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, asked the Justice Department to look into allegations that members of the Obama administration, quote, altered intelligence to push the narrative of a Trump-Russia plot days before Trump took office in 2017, despite prior intelligence reportedly indicating otherwise.
I hope that they go after this because I think this is what it was, a conspiracy to undermine the first term of President Trump.
Obama's team responding, telling Fox News these bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction. Nothing in the document issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election, but did not successfully manipulate any votes. These findings were affirmed in a 2020 report by the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee led by then Chairman Marco Rubio. Democrats slammed Trump's remarks.
Despicable. When he says something like that, it should be universally condemned.
Legal experts say to tamp down expectations on Obama facing charges. Remember, in 2024, the Supreme Court ruled that presidents are largely covered by immunity for official acts in office, a ruling that benefited President Trump. As for other people potentially being charged, a grand jury, Brett, would need to sign off on that first. Brett.
David, from former President Barack Obama to Hillary Clinton, Senate Republicans now opening up her email case once again?
Right, that's right. Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley claims a Justice Department Inspector General report from 2018 has just been released. Grassley says new documents prove the FBI did not look thoroughly at all the thumb drives related to the Clinton email probe. It's notable that Grassley says he tried in 2019 and 2020 when Trump was president the first time to get these documents out, but he couldn't. No word why when we asked, and no response yet tonight from Secretary Clinton's team. We'll follow it, Brett.
Okay.
Oh, we're not done yet. Let's keep going. We have this. More reaction. Here's some historic meltdowns on CNN after Trump accusing Obama of treason. They can scream all they want, but the evidence is clear as day. They used a fake dossier funded by Hillary Clinton's campaign to illegally obtain FISA warrants that allowed them to spy on Trump. They took out Flynn. It's all documented. They want you to forgive their treason because it was, 8 years ago.
Accused manipulate the votes, okay?
Right. In fact, they didn't even influence votes. They've had intentions of meddling in the election.
Oh again,
but they didn't
why are we talking about this? This is not the issue. You're trying to avoid the subject.
President Obama said that Russia did not manipulate any votes. We should note that because every liberal in America said that was the case.
All right, noted. You were doing everything possible not to talk about the fact that the president of the United States, the current president of the United States, just accused a former president of treason and suggested a prosecution of that former president with no evidence. That is the problem.
You can calm down. I don't think
I'm not going to calm down. Well,
I don't think he'll be
why don't you talk about that instead of talking about Obama?
Because Obama just undid 3 years of Democrat mythology.
What? Please, let's not talk about this. I don't want to talk about your distractions. The problem is, this is what Trump does. He distracts everybody. He's talking about President Obama because he doesn't want to talk about Epstein. He's talking about the Washington Commanders and the Cleveland Guardians because he doesn't want to talk about Epstein. He releases the Martin Luther King files because he doesn't want to talk about Epstein. He's doing everything possible except talking about Jeffrey Epstein because he's trying to throw up distractions so that people like you, Todd, can come on TV and try to diffuse
I have tried to agree with you, and you're violently not letting me.
I'm not doing anything violent.
I've said he's not guilty of manipulate
the votes, okay?
Right. In fact, they didn't even influence votes. They've had intentions of meddling in the election.
Again.
Now, check this out. This is, I thought, was really interesting analysis that Donald Trump just threw it out and Obama took the bait. Listen.
The head of state, what the
This is Steve
president
Bannon, Steve Bannon on the phone on Real America's Voice.
What the president did today in the Oval Office in front of a head of state and a head of state who's really a most important ally in our fight against the Chinese Communist Party and on global television, called out for the first time in our history another president, another commander-in-chief for high treason and named the co-conspirators. and took, I think, if I clocked that right, about 9 minutes and came back to it 2 or 3 times and reiterated and walked through the whole plot. And what's even more jaw-dropping than that is Obama actually took the bait and responded today. This is how concerned Barack Obama is about these charges. They actually put out a statement, so it's game on right now. And this could not get more serious. What's so interesting about their statement? It's another bald-faced lie. Remember, 3 or 4 weeks after this group met, they decided to, or right around that time, they decided to throw out 73, I think, Russian diplomats and senior officials. So they, the first, and this is how they were manufacturing the evidence. They made it up that it was direct interference to help Trump. That's a total lie. They manufactured the ICA. They had the Washington Post in on it, David Ignatius in on it, the entire team over there. And this thing's exploding. And it's exploding enough, Natalie, that Obama felt compelled to have his spokesman actually give a response because, like I said, Trump did it in the Oval Office in front of a visiting head of state and on global television, because this thing's gone all over the world.
It is going global. The world is reacting everywhere. Check this out.
Of treason. Yeah, but he's accusing a former president of treason.
Right.
And on top of that, saying, it may not be right, but I'm going to go after them anyway. What is he talking about? And what kind of country are we living in if that is actually what he is doing?
Well, first off, I thought the key part about President Obama's quote was that the Russians did not actually manipulate any votes.
Yeah, we knew that already.
Oh, wait a minute. In the immediate aftermath of the 2016 election, you could hardly find a Democrat who was not screaming that Russia rigged the election.
It has been 8 years since the immediate aftermath of the 2016
election. The fact that Obama is now undoing
Brad, as you know,
the Democrat mythology
as you know, there have been multiple reports. There have been there's been a major bipartisan Senate report that was led by Marco Rubio, who now works in Donald Trump's administration. We have known for many years that the Russians did not manipulate the votes, okay?
Right. In fact, they didn't even influence votes. They've had intentions of meddling in the election.
Oh but they didn't why are we talking about this? This is not the issue. You're trying to avoid the subject.
President Obama said that Russia did not manipulate any votes. We should note that because every liberal in America said that was the case.
All right, noted.
You're doing everything you're possible not to talk about the fact that the president of the United States, the current president of the United States, just accused a former president of treason and suggested a prosecution of that former president with no evidence. That is the problem.
You can calm down. I don't think
I'm not going to calm down.
I don't think he'll be prosecuted.
Why don't you talk about that instead of talking about Obama?
Because Obama just undid 3 years of Democrat mythology.
What?
Please, let's not talk about this. I don't want to talk about your distractions. The problem is, this is what Trump does. He distracts everybody.
Yeah, Trump distracting. No, this is something that needs to be covered. Let's check in with Timcast.
Forget. It's scary to me. Can we go over real quick so people don't forget? Because people really do forget. They falsely accused Trump of 34 felonies. Mm-hmm. The government proved no underlying crime, which is required for these charges, and told the jury, just decide for yourself if you think there was some other crime. In what reality can the U.S. legal system just say, we're going to lock you up and let the jury decide if you committed some crime? We're not going to actually present you with the crime. You don't get to confront your accusers. You have no right to a trial in this regard. They accused him of civil fraud, even though the banks said he never defrauded them. It was all in the up and up, and they made money and would like to work with him again. They arrested his lawyers in multiple states. They arrested him in multiple states. They raided his home with authorization to kill. They were armed and told if they were met with resistance that threatened their lives or caused great bodily harm, they could use lethal force against the president and the patrons of Mar-a-Lago, which is a large club. Mm-hmm. Right now, considering all that happened, what are we actually going to say? It's been 6 months. Mm-hmm. I know everyone says be patient. It does look like moves are being made, but the most I'm hearing from anyone in this is that maybe there will be a conspiracy against rights charge. I'm like, these people, going back to 2016, tried to overthrow the government. And what I mean by that is the government is of, for, and by the people. And when the American voters vote for Donald Trump, and then a cabal of unelected individuals use governmental power to undermine the will of the people, they're a subversive force betraying this nation. And Trump has an obligation to do something about it with expedience. At this point, I'm kind of feeling like nothing's ever going to happen and you're silly if you think it will. It's scary to me.
Do you remember remember that chef, Obama's chef, mysteriously died? Well, now there's renewed calls to find out exactly what happened. Listen to this. This is from Jesse Waters.
Into the water. Fox News alert, we have new information tonight in the drowning death of Obama's personal chef, Tafari Campbell. The Massachusetts State Police responded to our FOIA request and released their report with some redactions. According to the report, Obama was on the scene shortly after Campbell went missing. Report also states an unmanned female staffer jumped into the water when Tafari fell off his board, but it was already too late. He disappeared. We also now know that Secret Service has surveillance footage of Campbell from Obama's compound moments before he entered the water. So we're going to see if we can get that, and we may have that for you. Again, we're very, very sorry for Tafari's family. That was a serious, serious tragedy.
Yep. Justice Department take another look at the mysterious death of Tafari Campbell. What is Jim Jordan have to say here? This was just a couple hours ago.
Jim Jordan is a criminal reference, directly points to former President Obama. I guess my question to you, fighter that you are on the right side of these issues, what can you do about this? What can Congress do? What can the Judiciary Committee do? Because you got a list of people, right? From Obama on down. You've got Comey, you've got Brennan, you've got Clapper, you've got Jacob Sullivan. They're all involved in this incredible scam, okay? Almost a seditious scam, as some have said it. Yep. And there's got to be some consequences, Jim Jordan.
Yeah, I think we can put the story together, and I think we can put events to what Tulsi put forward. Now, remember what she's saying. She said they changed. They manipulated the intelligence community assessment. They had an assessment that said one thing. President Obama calls a meeting December 9th, 2016, after that first election, calls a meeting. All the key players are there. Brennan, Clapper, McCabe, Lynch, all the key players are there. And he says, time out on what the intelligence community has said. We're going to change that. We're going to manipulate that. And we're going to make it sound like something that's not true, i.e. President Trump was working with Russia, which we all know was garbage. So that's what they decided on December 9th. Then they hatch a plan to undermine President Trump. And the next big important date is January 6, 2017. When they go to Trump Tower, Brennan, Clapper, Comey give President Trump a briefing. The president-elect thinks he's getting the customary, normal briefing you would get as the incoming commander-in-chief. What he doesn't know is he's being set up because Comey talks to him about the dossier that he already knows. Jim Comey already knows is garbage, but he briefs the president on it. That information gets leaked, and now the press can run with it because, the FBI director has briefed the incoming president on the dossier. It must be real. It must be legit. That starts the whole thing, Mueller and everything else. It was a setup. So God bless Tulsi Gabbard for bringing this information forward and giving the base of it, the reason that they did this whole thing or what they manufactured this reason. And we put the events with it and tell the entire story. That's what we can do. Now, whether anyone gets prosecuted, that's up to Pam Bondi.
Well, now, hang on. That's up to Pam Bondi. Let's take a flashback to the press conference.
Do you believe that any of this new information implicates former President Obama in criminal behavior?
We have referred and will continue to refer all of these documents to the Department of Justice and the FBI. To investigate the criminal implications of this.
For even former President Obama?
Correct. The evidence that we have found and that we have released directly point to President Obama leading the manufacturing of this intelligence assessment. There are multiple pieces of evidence and intelligence that confirm that fact.
Do you believe that any of this...
Oh, man, such a bombshell. Holy cow. Here's the moment where the press secretary shut down CNN.
Is troubling. First, on Secretary Rubio, he put out a statement in 2020 following that Senate Intelligence Committee report, and he said what they found is troubling. We found irrefutable evidence of Russia meddling, which the Director of National Intelligence just confirmed for all of you, that Russia was trying to sow distrust and chaos. But what's the outrage in this that Secretary Rubio did not say at the time, the Democrats were saying at the time, is the fact that the intelligence community was concocting this narrative that the president colluded with the Russians, that the president's son was holding secret meetings with the Russians, all of these lies that were never true. And he also said at that time, we discovered deeply troubling actions taken by the FBI under Comey, particularly their acceptance and willingness to rely on the Steele dossier without verifying its methodology or sourcing. The Steele dossier that many outlets in this room ran as the gospel truth, and it was cooked up and paid for by the Clinton campaign. As for your second question, Caitlin, I think who is saying that she would release this to try to boost her standing with the president? Who has said that?
Well, the president has publicly undermined her when it came to Iran. He said she was wrong. He told me that she didn't know what she was talking about. That was on Air Force One on camera.
The only people who are suggesting that the Director of National Intelligence would release evidence to try to boost her standing with the president are the people in this room who constantly try to sow distrust and chaos amongst the president's cabinet, and it is not working. I will just answer your question directly. I am with the President of the United States every day. He has the utmost confidence in Director Gabbard. He always has. He continues to, and that is true of his entire cabinet, who is all working as one team to deliver on the promises this president made.
Yeah. There's irrefutable evidence. Colorado Republicans, irrefutable evidence that detail how President Barack Obama and his national security team directed the creation of intelligence community assessment that they knew was false. Wow. The reactions all over the board. And here is Tulsi Gabbard just a few hours ago.
There's no question in my mind that this intelligence community assessment that President Obama ordered be published, which contained a manufactured intelligence document. It's worse than even politicization of intelligence. It was manufactured intelligence that sought to achieve President Obama and his team's objective, which was undermining President Trump's presidency and subverting the will of the American people. So yes, next week we will be releasing more detailed information about how exactly this took place and the extent to which this information was sought to be hidden from the American people, hidden from officials who would be in a position to do something about.
This whole thing is collapsing. I can only imagine Barack Obama is freaking out right now, all of them. Here is Senator Marsha Blackburn. She says, thanks to DNI Gabbard, we now have proof that Obama and his officials manufactured the Russia collusion hoax.
Obama, that's right. Now we do know. And thank goodness that DNI Gabbard released 100 documents so that people can see, here's the proof. This is what they were doing. They knew Hillary was creating this dossier. So then they go in and Obama's team is all informed. And then they start to create a diversion and they try to make it about Trump. Here is what we know. The bureaucracy and the swamp has got to be drained. These people that are careers over at the FBI and the DOJ that have participated in this need to be shown the door. There are prosecutions that should take place. This is weaponizing the federal government against a citizen, against a political opponent, because the American people are not doing what you want them to do. This is the kind of thing that we thought was going on. We had some pretty good ideas it was going on, some pretty good anecdotal evidence it was happening. And now they have shown the receipts. Let the prosecutions begin.
Yeah. Let the prosecutions begin. If you got value from this report, tap subscribe. My final thought is next. So the media's reaction tells you everything. They're not denying the evidence because they can't. They're attacking Tulsi for releasing it. CNN's panels are melting down not because the documents are fake, but because what they reveal. when Jason Chaffetz, a former congressman who's seen classified intelligence, goes on television and says Obama was engaged in a conspiracy. That's not hyperbole. That's a prosecutor building a case. The mainstream media spent 4 years pushing the Russia hoax. They won Pulitzers for their lies. Now they're watching their narrative collapse in real time. Congressional Republicans smell blood in the water. The polls show Americans want justice, and the question isn't whether Obama lied anymore. It's whether he'll face consequences. Do you trust the media to report honestly on the Obama treason? Drop a yes or no. Let me know in the comments. And you can grab your Next News gear at shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. You can support real journalism. You can help us expose President Otto Penn. You can support Alligator Alcatraz or pick your favorite member of the administration, Tulsi Gabbard even, and trigger a liberal today at shop.nextnewsnetwork.com.